This is WVUA 23 News at 10.
Good evening and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Tamika Alexander. Topping tonight's news, the Alabama Crimson Tide is in New Orleans getting ready for their big college football playoff showdown with the team that beat them in the finals last year, the Clemson Tigers. WVUA 23's Gary Harris has more from the Big Easy on the Tide and the Tigers.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the game is getting closer. We're heading into the weekend. The game is Monday night at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome just down the street here a little bit. Last year Alabama lost that heartbreaker to Clemson in the final seconds, and it kept the Tide from a 15-0 perfect season and back-to-back national championships. But this is a new year, a new game, and the players say, you know what, while that still hurts, you got to move on. And last year's game has absolutely nothing to do with this year's game.
We just took the lessons from the loss and we applied them. You can't really think about the last play. You can't think about what you could have done differently. You just got to worry about how you can prepare differently, what decisions can you make differently throughout the whole entire process leading up to the game. But thinking about the last play isn't going to help anything at all.
With the loss last year, just take it and learn from it, and then just try to improve this year and just build on it.
Well, coming up later in WVUA 23 Sports from New Orleans, Jeremy Pruitt and the Alabama defensive players talk about him juggling duties as the Tennessee head coach and the Alabama defensive coordinator. I'll see you later in sports. Let's go back to the studio. Good evening, everybody. Gary Harris here in New Orleans as we continue our Sugar Bowl coverage leading up to the college football playoff semifinal on Monday night at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. You know, just a few weeks ago, Jeremy Pruitt was focused on being Alabama's defensive coordinator, getting the Tide ready to try to win another national championship, and he's still focused on that. But he's got other duties now as well. As you know, he was recently named the head coach at the University of Tennessee, so for the third straight year, Alabama has one of its coordinators that is pulling double duty. But while there might have been issues last year with Lane Kiffin, and some folks even said with Kirby Smart, the feeling among the Alabama players is that all is well with Jeremy Pruitt. In fact, Pruitt said today that right now his only focus is Alabama versus Clemson.
You know, we're going to work on football and work on recruiting at night, but instead of recruiting for Alabama, I'm recruiting for Tennessee. So nothing's changed from that standpoint. But my focus right now is really on these guys that are involved in this game, this football game, and really I would like for us to talk about this football game, and there'll be plenty of times to talk about Tennessee later on.
Coach Pruitt is just one of those guys, man. He doesn't just teach X's and O's. He teaches about life. He truly is a man of his word. It's kind of crazy the fact that, I was recruited by Coach Kirby Smart, and, he came in and was the defensive coordinator, and, right off the bat, we hit it.
No, he's done a real good job. It's almost like it's like he hasn't even accepted that other job. He's still doing his thing, being passionate, leading, and doing what he does.
Well, he's not the biggest. He may not be the fastest, but if you ask any Alabama fan who the Bama killer for Clemson has been the last couple of years, they'll probably say Hunter Renfrow and not Deshaun Watson. Renfrow, 4 touchdown catches in the 2 games, including last year's game winner in the final seconds. Now, he's up to about 175 pounds. He came to Clemson weighing about 155. He can only bench 225 pounds, 2 reps. But you know what he can do? He can get open, and he can make big catches.
He just does the job really well. He's not going to out-physical you or outrun you. He gets the ball in space, he makes people miss, and he's a real shifty guy, smaller guy, so he's hard to tackle in space. When he does that, and he has also other great receivers around him, so you can't really just focus on him.
Hunter's, quick. I think he's probably one of the best receivers in the nation. Just with his agility that he brings to the table, it's definitely has deceptive speed, definitely. I don't know why people think he's slow. Someone said he was slow in the other room. But he's definitely one of the fast receivers that we'll be playing against this year. I think one of the best as well.
Let me bring in another member of the WVUA 23 sports team now, Bethany Miller, who covered both the Clemson offensive press conference and the Alabama defensive press conference this morning. What did you take away from that?
The Clemson press conferences were pretty interesting. Jeff Scott and Tony Ellett, the co-offensive coordinators for the Tigers, they're so impressed by this Alabama defense, and Minkah Fitzpatrick in general. They're they said there's no way to even prepare for it. That is how good we are, even despite all the injuries. And then taking away from the Alabama defensive coordinator, Jeremy Pruitt, he did talk about his Tennessee move, but he said he kind of wanted to focus on Alabama now. And he did, and his players praised him up and down, talking about his passion and his support for them.
I think both teams are ready for the game, don't you, Bethany?
I definitely think so. They are ready to get this third matchup underway.
One other note we want to pass along before we close out. Shelton State, their great women's basketball team, ranked number 2, beat top-ranked Gulf State College 62-54. So Shelton State, it looks like, is going to be number 1. For Bethany Miller, I'm Gary Harris. That's the latest from New Orleans. The News at 10 will continue right after this.